Hey Rebels, this is attorney Chloe Corbett, aka the Duchess of Justice, and with me I have
Attorney Augustus Corbett, a.k.a. the Minister of Justice.
we are the Defiant Lawyers. We provide legal analysis of trending politics, policies, personalities, and pop culture to empower you to defy this unjust legal system. Before we get into today's topics, why don't you go right ahead and hit that like button? Like the video, you know you're going to get some good information today. Go ahead and share this video with your family and friends on whatever platform you're listening to this to. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Defiant Lawyers. With that, Dad, happy Saturday, and how's it going today?
Happy Saturday to you as well, and it is going very well, and it is always my pleasure and honor and privilege to be on the air with my very smart, very beautiful, very capable lawyer daughter who is doing a bang-up job, I tell you, hosting this program, as well as, you know, with all the law stuff that we got going on. We've been very, very busy. I tell you, man, it is something being busy lawyers, right?
It really is. Not only being busy lawyers, but running a business. There are two things that a lot of people don't realize is when you're in private practice, you have a business to run. So we're practicing law, we're running a business, and then all of the other things that we're doing, the endeavors that we're doing. It's a lot, but this is a release for us, and this is something that we enjoy, and we love connecting with the rebels, and going over the weeks or the days trending topics and giving our legal opinions. So with that, let's just get right on into it. We're going to be discussing a lot that has gone on this past week. There were 3 celebrities who gave interviews or testified, and we believe that they should not have done that. We believe that their arrogance led them into kind of messing up their cases. And we're also going to be talking about the Kim Potter, Dante Wright shooting that occurred in Minnesota. So with that, Dad, can you take us through the Travis Scott interview that he did with Charlamagne this past week?
Yes, I was just trying to make sure that we were live and everything was going well, but it seems like it is, so I will go ahead and get started. Yes, Travis Scott, as we know, gave an interview with Charlamagne this past week, I believe it was, and in my opinion, it was a disaster, and he should shut up. He should shut up. He should stop talking. Zip it. Close it. Throw the key away. I would imagine his lawyers probably tried to I'm seeing something here still that says we're live on Facebook, but we're not on YouTube. What is all that about? Sorry about this, you all, but we're kind of producing as we go here.
We're the producers and the hosts.
No, it's live. I see it. We're on Facebook too. I mean YouTube perfect. As well. Yeah. All right. So let me just make sure. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. Sorry about that, you all. Please, please, please forgive us. But anyway, Travis Scott gave an interview with Charlamagne, and I think that he should have not done so. It was, in my opinion, from a legal perspective, a disaster. Charlamagne was basically deposing Travis Scott without, we know Charlamagne is not a lawyer. There was no court reporter. He was not under oath, all of that, all right? But what he said still will be used against him, will still come back probably to haunt him. Because he made a lot of statements in response to Charlamagne's very probing questions. There was one exchange between Charlamagne and Travis Scott that I think was particularly, there were many, but one was particularly damaging in my opinion. And this is where they talked about this phenomena called raging. All right, so I'm old school, right? I mean, I grew up in the era of Earth, Wind, and Fire and Maze and George Clinton, Parliament, Funkadelic, the Starship, and all that. and that was about as rowdy as it got. All right. So this raging and marsh pits and falling back in the crowd, and the crowd passing you along and running up to the stage in mass numbers. We used to run up to the stage, but not like that, not with all of that energy. And so Charlamagne asked about that and said, hey, you're known for that. Your concerts are known for that. And sort of got Travis Scott to go on the record talking about, the fact that he does try to get the energy going, and he does, want there to be a certain, excitement and all of that happening at his concerts. I mean, I just think that the plaintiff lawyers are going to use all that to show that, he's largely responsible for creating the environment that caused these people to lose their lives, and a number, or quite a few other folks getting seriously injured. He just should not have done it. He just should not have done that. And we're going to talk about two other celebrities who also should shut up. And one of them is Jussie Smollett, who it's probably too late at this point because, as we know, he was found guilty of 5 out of 6 counts. You're going to talk about that in just a moment. And then there was Alec Baldwin, who also sat down in front of the camera and gave an interview. I think these celebrities just think, hey, I'm a celebrity, I'm smart, I'm articulate, I'm loved by a lot of people. I can get out here and talk my way out of anything. All right. So despite the legal stuff and despite what the lawyers are saying, let me go out there and help myself. In almost all cases, they're not helping themselves. I know they think they're smarter than we are as lawyers, but they don't know the law. They don't know the art and science of cross-examination and how their words are going to come back, to how we're going to use those words to go at them in court. So, their arrogance, in my opinion, caused them to go out there and do that. And in Travis Scott's case, I think it was disaster to sit down with Charlamagne like that for a whole hour, almost a little bit under an hour, just going on the record. I think he was thinking he could help himself by reassuring his fans that, they're going to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. And he was also trying to really shift the blame to some of the other defendants. And I downloaded some of the lawsuits right in this case, and there are a number of defendants. So, I mean, I can understand him trying to say, hey, it wasn't just us at this concert. Other people were involved. And, of course, the plaintiff's attorneys are not certainly would agree with him because they want to get as many defendants as possible. But just to name a few, NR Energy, Travis Scott, I think his real name is it Jack Webster? Mm-hmm. Is that right, Chloe?
That's right.
All right, ASM Global Parent, Live Nation, Score More Management, some individual people, Trey Hick, just a number of defendants here. And so I think Travis was trying to say there are other people who were involved in this situation who dropped the ball. Look to them. Don't look just to me. I don't know how that worked, and I don't know even if it worked some. I don't know what I still think that the comments he made just really gave a lot of fodder, a lot of ammunition for the plaintiff's attorneys to use in their civil case against him.
I agree. And what people don't realize is that when a person is a party to a lawsuit, meaning they're either the plaintiff or the defendant, or they are responding to the lawsuit or they're bringing the lawsuit, whatever they say it's an exception from hearsay. Typically, what people say outside of court cannot be brought in unless there's some exception. But when you're a party, hearsay does not apply to your words. So the plaintiff's attorneys in all of these lawsuits, they can take exactly what Travis said in this interview and use it against him in a deposition, in a hearing, or at trial. So I agree. I do not think it was wise or smart for him to give this interview. In fact, he kind of mentioned that there were some people telling him, that he really shouldn't be out talking. He alluded to that, but he
Yeah,
said that
I'm
he
I'm
wanted to.
sure those people were lawyers.
Yes, yes, yes. But he alluded that he wanted to connect to his fans. And keep in mind, as a celebrity, I think it's not only their arrogance, but they have so many competing people who have their own interests when it comes to these celebrities, whether it be the publicists, the agents, the radio heads, movie studio execs. So they have all of these people trying to get in their ears, saying, "Hey, you want to get out in front of this, you want to talk to your fans," versus the lawyer who knows the law and who knows the impact of what the words can have on the case. So I think, unfortunately, it appears here that Travis Scott listened to those other competing interests than his attorney. That's the first thing. And I think, just very briefly before we move on, I think him saying, and I'm going to read it, quote, "Even after the show, you're just kind of hearing things, which I didn't know the exact details until, minutes before the press conference." So he was saying at the very beginning, he didn't know about, people passing out and people dying really until the press conference. I think that can kind of go against his credibility, because there were a lot of fan reports saying that the people were yelling at the stage, people were getting his attention, people were trying to let him know that there's something wrong. And then him coming in this interview and saying, well, he didn't know anything until the press conference, I think that can go against his credibility. So I agree with you, Dad. Travis, just shut up. Just be quiet. It's for your own good. Listen to your attorney. I know, as a human, you might feel that you need to go out there and say something, but legally, you should not have, and it probably didn't help with the victims and their families anyway.
Right.
Anything else about on the Travis Scott interview?
Well, just very briefly, I'm sure there are many insurance companies involved, and their attorneys. They've hired firms to represent their interests, and I am certain those insurance companies, their attorneys, advised him. I would really, really, really bet they did not to go out and do that. But you make a very good point. There are so many other folks involved in interests. His publicists, his management, his personal attorneys, and so on. Yep. Who may be in his other ear saying, "Hey, we need to let our fans know, or your fans know, that going forward things will be different. Safety will be at the forefront. So don't stop. Don't stop coming to the concerts, and don't stop buying our music." And, I'm not saying that he doesn't feel bad about what happened. I'm sure he does. 10 people lost their lives, including a 9-year-old child from the Dallas area here. So I'm sure he feels horrible as a human being. But control those emotions. Say that at some other time. Express that or whatever at some other time, while you're under lawsuits, hundreds of them, I understand. For these tragedies, you just don't need to be talking. Shut up. We have when we've represented folks, Chloe. When things tend to go bad in our cases, it was because of someone talking when they should not have talked. Okay, it is a bad, bad, bad thing to talk when you are under legal scrutiny. Let your lawyers do the talking for you. All right. Yep. So, all right. That is where we are with the Travis Scott case. I think we'll move on now to another celebrity who I believe also talked himself into a mess, and that is Jussie Smollett. What do you have to say about Jussie?
Yeah, he talked himself into becoming a convicted felon. He was found guilty Thursday on 5 of 6 felony counts of disorderly conduct for making a false report to Chicago police, in which he claimed, a few years ago that he was the victim of a hate crime in January 2019. So he is now a convicted felon. He was found guilty of those 5 disorderly conduct counts, and he could be sentenced to at least 3 years on each of those counts under Illinois law. Illinois law. In Illinois, a disorderly conduct charge for a false crime report is a class 4 felony and is punishable by up to 3 years in prison and a $25,000 fine. The judge in his case will have discretion in imposing either concurrent sentences for each of those 5 counts he was convicted of, or to do it consecutive, where he would have to serve 3 years, 3 years, 3 years back to back. So we haven't heard what sentence he's going to get yet. Judge James Lind will make that decision at a later date, but he is a convicted felon. There was a lot of controversy surrounding this case because a lot of celebrities, even politicians, came out in 2019 and showed support for Jesse. You know, they came out and said how horrible it was. And this case has really divided people along political lines because a lot of Democrats came out in support of Jesse. Because he claimed that some white men attacked him and started shouting MAGA chant towards him. So obviously, you know, the supporters of former President Trump, they were not happy with what Jesse claimed that happened. So this has really divided people along political lines, and it just came back up with this trial. There was a lot that happened between 2019 and until now. Chicago police were very, very upset with Jesse. Once they started investigating him, they tried to sue him civilly to recoup the cost of the investigation. And then
that suit is still pending.
It's still pending. Yeah. Yep. So not only now is he a convicted felon, but he could also be out of hundreds of thousands of dollars as well. So Jesse took the stand in his own defense, and he said some things that just, to me, were irrelevant and unnecessary. I'm kind of trying to cast doubt on the prosecution witnesses, who were 2 brothers who testified that Jesse hired them to stage this attack. But Jesse tried to disparage their credibility and said that he had a relationship with one of the brothers and got into all of that territory.
I remember. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So obviously the jury, which was made of, I believe, 6 men and 6 women, they listened to both sides. They listened to what the Nigerian brothers testified about Jesse hiring them.
Before we talk about the jury here, let's go back. You know, Jesse, I'm sure, felt like he had a good, it gave some valuable testimony when it was his lawyer doing direct examination of him. But maybe he forgot there's also something called cross-examination. And you know what? Out of all the aspects of a trial, Chloe, I enjoy all aspects of trial work, but I especially enjoy cross-examination.
Oh, yeah, that's the fun part.
That is the fun part. I mean, that's when you get to, to really, I mean, you're like a lion looking at a fresh piece of steak. Like you got the nerve to take the stand in this case and give me the opportunity to go at you. I'm sure that's what that prosecutor was thinking.
Yeah. And try to get to the truth, the bottom.
Exactly. And, your lawyer asks you those softball questions. I'm going at you, dude. I'm going at you. I'm going to show the jury who you really are. And so, yeah, I love cross-examination. Most lawyers do. So, yeah, the jury, when he did his direct examination, I think some folks said, well, hey, he didn't do too bad. But the lawyers looking at this matter said, wait, hold on. There's something else coming. A skilled prosecutor is going to have the opportunity to cross-examine him, and it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty, and The jury thought it wasn't pretty either because um they believed the state's witnesses versus Jussie Smollett. So now he is in custody awaiting sentencing. Now his attorney did come out, Ninye Uche, who called the verdict inconsistent, saying that the jury cannot find Smollett lied in 5 instances, but did not lie in the sixth. So the reason why he was charged with those 6 disorderly conduct charges is because the state alleged that every time that he lied to the police, that was a different count. So his attorney came out and said, well, how can you say that he lied in 5 where he made these false police reports but didn't lie in the 6? And they already indicated that they are going to be appealing this verdict. Here in Texas, you have 30 days to file what we call a motion for new trial, which is where you ask the judge to give you a new trial. And we filed that motion to the original trial judge who heard the case, but then you can also file the motion up to appellate judges who are higher level judges who will look back at what happened with the lower trial court. So they intend to appeal this verdict. We'll see what happens with the sentence whenever that's done. Right now he's in custody. It will be appealed. And yeah, Mr. Smollett, I don't think that it was wise for you to testify.
Yeah, so yeah, his lawyers are going to appeal this case. I'm sure they're going to file their notice of appeal probably, over the next week or so. I personally don't know what type of record they have created and whether or not there are any feasible basis for appeal to have these convictions overturned, but I'm sure they will. I was on it, and another part of the Smollett trial, Chloe, was the fact that he had already worked a deal out with Kim Fox. I think Kim Fox, offered him a deal to do community service and I think pay $10,000 or so and move on. Look, I thought that should have been the end of it, quite frankly. They worked out a deal. She, a seasoned prosecutor, said, hey, this is what I think should happen, and that's that, all right? But as you pointed out, there were a lot of folks in the police department especially who were angry and upset with Jussie. By the way, I wish they get as angry and upset about some of those Chicago police officers who have killed black men in the city of Chicago. I wish they get as upset about that. Okay, if they had as much energy about that as they did about this Smollett trial, maybe they could get a handle on some of the police killings and shootings there in Chicago, and maybe could also help bring down some of the killings in the community there in Chicago, rather than wasting all this time, in my opinion, on Jussie Smollett. The guy did community service, paid some money, move on. Was the way I saw it. That was the way I saw it. People disagree with me, fine, but that was the way I saw the Smollett trial.
Me too. So I do want to just go over very briefly what the brothers testified to at the trial. They said that, and their names are Bola and Ola Osendero. They were among 7 witnesses who testified for the state. They testified that Smollett directed them and paid them to stage the attack in an attempt to get media attention. And it was reported that apparently when he was on the show Empire, he had received some hate mail, and he did not like how the Empire executives handled that situation. So in order to get some attention, he staged this attack, according to the brothers. He said that they instructed him to fake punch him, poured bleach on him, put a noose around his neck, and use racist and homophobic slurs because he told him to. And then they testified that Jussie, quote, said he had this crazy idea of having 2 MAGA supporters attack him and that he wanted to put that on social media. I mean, obviously the jury believed this, but it just sounds so fantastical why would a celebrity do this just to get media attention? To me, it goes into kind of celebrity culture, and this culture of where people, celebrities and non-celebrities alike, want to get as much attention as possible, and be in the spotlight, and be on social media. So unfortunately, this thirst for fame, according to these two brothers who the jury believed, is kind of what led to Jesse's downfall and becoming a convicted felon and potentially getting prison time. So we will continue to monitor the story, and update you all on what the sentence is, and more of the what happens with the case. But let's move on to another man, Alec Baldwin, who is also pretty arrogant and who we believe should not have given the interview with George Stephanopoulos this past week. Um, for those of you all who, I'm sure you all remember what happened on the set of his movie, Rust, where two people, one person was killed, and another person was injured. He gave an interview, and the thing that stands out to me in that interview is where he said that he did not pull the trigger, and I think that stood out with a lot of people. That is what a lot of the media reports focused on. I don't know. He came across. He said that he didn't pull the trigger, and he said that he did not feel guilty about what happened. What are your thoughts about that, Dad?
Well, when he said that he didn't pull the trigger, I thought that he still made a very, very important admission. Okay? Because he said he didn't pull the trigger. However, he did release the hammer on the pistol. And when he released the hammer on the pistol, that's when the gun fired. So essentially, he was saying that he still, although he didn't pull the trigger, just, I guess, correcting the record, he still at the same time admitted to causing the death of the director. Okay? For anyone who understands how revolvers work and how even some semi-automatic pistols work, some of them have a hammer that you have to pull back. And once that hammer is released, unless there's some kind of safety mechanism or something, once that hammer is released, it will discharge the round. Okay? And so while he says he didn't pull the trigger, we can concede that. Yet when he admitted that when he released the hammer, the bullet still discharged, is still an admission, in my mind, that he caused the death of the director and the injury of the assistant director. So he still didn't help himself, okay, in my opinion, which is all the reason. I guess if we had anything if we were to entitle this today, it would be "Shut Up, Celebrities. You can't talk your way out of everything. We know that you're trained to get on the cameras and razzle and dazzle us, the audience, and how much we love you and love your music and love your performances and this and that. But when it comes to legal issues, no, you need to be quiet. Just shut up."
Yeah. And the thing is, and also the interview that he gave is not like George Stephanopoulos kind of went in on him, as we like to say. He didn't give him hard questions. It was kind of a softball type interview. Yeah. And yet he still said things that we think would not help him in court. And he should have shut up. So even with the kind of softball questions that George was giving him, he still made all types of admissions that will likely not help in any future litigation. So just be quiet, okay? Whether you're a celebrity or not, and if you are, yes, shut it. If you are involved in any type of litigation or being investigated for a crime, it's better just to not speak and let your legal representation, your legal counsel speak for you if you all deem that something does need to be said. So I think this is time for us to move into our last topic for today, Dad, and that is
very, very sad story, actually.
Yes, very sad story.
All the way around.
The trial of Kim Potter, who was a police officer who has been charged with 2 counts of manslaughter, first degree and second degree manslaughter for the killing of Dante Wright, who was a 20-year-old young black man. He was killed subsequent to a traffic stop by Kim Potter and another officer who she was training. And she is now on trial out of Minnesota for his killing. This past week, there have been several witnesses who testified for the state on behalf of the prosecution. Namely, his mother, Dante Wright's mother, testified on the first day. His friend testified as well, his 20-year-old girlfriend. And then there were several police officers who
Well,
testified.
let me just say the testimonies of his mother and his girlfriend were very emotional.
Yeah.
And prosecutors, you being a former prosecutor, you know that you all typically put those emotional witnesses on the stand first. You know, when prosecuting somebody, to get the jury, you know, just really, really, really emotional and kind of caught up in the case emotionally, and for anyone to see a distraught, heartbroken, shattered mother testifying about her son, and his girlfriend, you know, talking about how she was, you know, trying to administer first aid and so forth and trying to keep him alive. Yeah, all that was very emotional, but it was also strategic on the prosecutor's part.
It was. Now, what was also kind of emotional is the last officer who testified. He was a former sergeant. He's the former sergeant with the Brooklyn Center Police Department, and he was the supervisor of Kim Potter. They played some body cam footage from him where the video showed that Kim Potter was distraught on the ground and crying and saying all types of stuff. And, you know, I meant to pull the trigger. Her main defense is that it was an accident, that she meant to pull out her taser and not her gun. I do think that could have some sway on the jury. Now, how much, I don't know. But to me, it didn't make sense to have this witness, the former sergeant, testify on behalf of the state, because he said that he felt that she was justified, that Kim Potter was justified in using deadly force, and it was through his body cam where the imagery of Kim Potter being distraught after the shooting was shown to the jury. So that witness didn't really make a lot of sense to me to have him testify. I don't think he was necessary. I don't know what the strategy is, what the prosecutors were trying to do. Do you think that the jury, looking at a distraught Kim Potter after the shooting of Dante Wright, could have any sway on them either way?
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. I think this officer, she was either putting on a tremendous, tremendous act, or she truly was just devastated that she had shot this young man. That said, that doesn't excuse what she did.
Right.
And I suppose the prosecutor is going to try to make that point. But there is built-in favor that a police officer has with most juries. It's the reason why it's so hard to get convictions when they shoot, especially black people. So yeah, that could have an impact, and also she hasn't even testified yet, and I fully expect her to do so, and I fully expect that she will definitely be very emotional on the stand. I also agree with you that the sergeant, Michael Johnson, former sergeant, or I think he's former, of that police department, I don't see his cross-examination by the defense, to me, was effective for Kim Potter, because he said, in essence, that she was justified in using deadly force because he was hanging in that car trying to he was struggling with Dante, allegedly trying to put the car in park so he couldn't move it. So he was saying had she not shot Dante, may he rest in peace, that the officer said he could have gotten drugged and possibly injured and maybe even killed. Now, when I look at the video, Chloe, I don't see that, okay, because he's standing on the passenger side. He's leaning into the passenger side of the car, and the car is going forward. So all he has to do is just back out of the car. I could see his point if he was standing in front of the car, but he was in no way at danger of the car hitting him so long as the car was pointing forward. Now, if Dante had put it in reverse, then yes, him and all the officers who were around that car could have been injured. But Dante was clearly trying to go forward. And so the car was no threat to that officer. But will those two things, Kim being distraught and this officer testifying that whether she intended to use a taser or not, her use of deadly force was justified, would that have a sway on the jury? Very likely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, as attorneys and as prosecutors specifically, when there's some negative evidence that could come out against your case or bad facts, sometimes it's good just to put it on the forefront. So they may have been thinking, okay, let's go ahead and present this video footage where Kim is distraught because we can anticipate that she's going to be distraught on the stand. So we already want to get the jury to already see how distraught she was, but still in our cross-examination, like you said, show that even if she was distraught or even if she was crying, that was no excuse for Dante to be killed. So I think that they maybe wanted to make the jury immune to her potentially being distraught on the stand at trial by watching this video footage. So I'm very, very interested to see how her testimony is going to go once the prosecution closes its case and then the defense starts presenting their case in chief. And her attorney's already said that she's going to testify. So I'm with you. I really highly anticipate that she is going to testify. And I think a lot of this case is going to depend on her testimony and whether or not the jury finds her credible and finds what she says credible on the stand. Because realize, people, that the jury are the ones who are looking at all of the facts, giving weight to all of the facts, giving weight to all of the witnesses who testify, and make the determination on whether they believe that person is credible. And since Kim is likely going to be testifying in her own defense, they're going to have a chance to analyze her credibility and see how persuasive it is on them. So we're going to keep everyone updated on this Kim Potter trial.
Before we leave, there are two other issues I want to address in this trial, in this case, quickly. All right. One is the fact that all of this happened because Dante was displaying an air freshener from his window, an air freshener. You get so tired of seeing these young black men most often killed over the most silliest reasons by police officers. I mean, George Floyd over a fake $20 bill.
Yeah.
Tamir Rice over a fake gun. Walter Scott, some potential child support issues. Dante Rice, an air freshener. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on and on over these stupid, insignificant reasons why. And some of them, there are no reasons. Philando Castile, no reason at all. Eric Garner, selling cigarettes on the street corner. I mean, insignificant reasons why the police officers often turn to violence when it comes to black men. So I want to point that out too. And second of all, I am a person who has a lot of mercy for the accused. Okay, and even with Kim Potter, I believe that Dante should be alive. I don't believe that she should have used deadly force. Uh, and I'm going to show you in just a moment why I don't buy her story about mistaking the gun between the taser. But I still have mercy for her. This is still, a devastating situation for anyone to be in, her family, etc. There are no winners in these types of cases. But let me just show a picture of a gun and a taser. Okay, a gun and a taser. Now, just look at these two, and these are not, this is not the taser nor the gun that was used in this case. But this just gives you an idea of how different these two machines, if you will, feel in your hand. All right. The taser has this thick handle. The gun has a slimmer handle. The taser is bigger, bulkier. The gun is lighter. And when you add to the fact that this is a seasoned officer who was training another officer, you just have to ask the question, how would you not know the difference? Really, how do you, a seasoned officer, not know the difference between a taser and a gun? And I understand that the taser's on one side of the body, the gun is on the other side of the body, so that you don't make that mistake. I also understand that they intentionally built the taser different than the gun, the feel of it, so that that mistake doesn't happen. Now, everybody's human. We all make mistakes. I get that. But it is very difficult to understand how a seasoned police officer would end up making this mistake and killing this young man over a doggone air freshener. Okay? So when we look at his case in the context of all these other cases, it is just exhausting. So I wanted to bring that out.
Yeah. And it goes to one of the elements that the state has to prove. In Minnesota, according to Minnesota statute 609.205, manslaughter in the second degree, a person who causes the death of another by any of the following means is guilty of manslaughter in the second degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 10 years or to a payment of a fine of not more than $20,000 or both. For one, by the person's culpable negligence, whereby the person creates an unreasonable risk and consciously takes chances of causing death or great bodily harm to another. I think the fact that you pointed out that she was a training officer, that she was supposed to be training another officer on how to make these traffic stops and what to do in these type of situations, and that as a training officer, she accidentally mistook her taser for a gun. I think the prosecution is going to focus on that point and focus on the negligence of Dante's killing. So not only was she charged with what I just read, manslaughter in the second degree, but she's also charged with manslaughter in the first degree, which states that whoever does any of the following is guilty of manslaughter in the first degree and may be sentenced to not more than 15 years or a fine or payment of $10,000 when they intentionally cause the death of another person in the heat of passion provoked by such words or acts of another as would provoke a person of ordinary self-control under like circumstances, provided that the crime of a child does not constitute provocation. So again, the standard is what would a person of ordinary self-control do in this case. In Kim Potter's case, she was a training officer. She was not a person of ordinary self-control. As a training officer, she should have even more self-control than an ordinary person. So I think those are some of the things that the state is going to point to as they try to meet their elements of proven beyond a reasonable doubt that she's guilty of manslaughter in the first degree and manslaughter in the second degree.
Yeah, that's a great analysis of Minnesota law. We're not Minnesota lawyers. We're licensed here in the state of Texas. I always want to give that disclaimer. So kind of take what we say with a grain of salt when it comes to our analysis of another jurisdiction's law. But I think Chloe did a great job being a lawyer from another state on what the prosecutor's burden is. And I think the fact that you've prosecuted cases help you, do that kind of an analysis. I never been a prosecutor. And by the way, I say all the time, a lot of prosecutors, when they become defense lawyers, they like to say, I was a former prosecutor, as if that somehow or another gives them some credibility, I guess, that us non-prosecutor defense lawyers don't have. But I push back. I say, no, I've never been a prosecutor. I never sent anyone to jail. I never, I don't know what it's like to be on that side of the law. I've always been for the accused. And obviously I don't say that, or if it's not obvious, I don't say that because I think black people shouldn't be prosecutors. Not at all. I think more black people should be prosecutors because then I think prosecuting offices, DA's offices, will do a better job at being fair and get rid of some of the racial bias that are in prosecutors' offices. So I don't disparage black prosecutors at all. But I've never been one, never wanted to be one.
Yeah. We need more black prosecutors. We need a lot more black prosecutors. We need more black judges. We need more black people in the legal system as a whole.
Amen.
Black attorneys only make up about 5% of the legal profession in the United States. And we need more diverse opinion. And we need more advocates for black defendants, black people involved in litigation. So that is the analysis of the top trending topics that we have this week. We hope that you all learned something from this. We're so glad that you joined us on Rebels in today's video. Do you have any last parting words before we get off the air, Dad?
Well, like you said in the beginning, I think you said in the beginning, if you didn't, I'm saying, we are very busy lawyers. However, this right here is a joy. It's a release. We love the law. We love talking to our audience. We love trying to make the law relatable, understandable. We love taking our audience to law school, if you will. Okay? So thank you, Legal Rebels, for tuning in. Spread the word about the Defiant Lawyers podcast and YouTube channel. We want to reach a whole lot more folks with our message and with our channel. So yeah, it was great, Chloe.
It was great. We look forward to seeing you all next week, Wednesday or Thursday of next week, as well as next Saturday. Thank you all again for joining us. Please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and we will talk with you all soon. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.